Hi, welcome back. What we're going to do today is we're going to focus on this internal layout. We're going to try and get this page started so that we can link to it. And as you remember, we left off here, but I'm just going to go in quickly and change this yellow background to be white again by deleting that. There we go. And I'm going to add some text underneath here, which is going to be linking to a large penguins image. The only thing I want to change though is I don't want it to link to the image anymore. I want it to link to the penguins HTML page, which we haven't made yet, but that's where I want it to go. I also want the image to go to that penguins page. So these two things will now link to this, imaginary penguins page, which we haven't made yet. And I'm also going to update the title here from Welcome to Our Adventure, which we started with, to Amazing Animals, which we decided to name the site. Now this by itself is a good template for you to use for your next pages, and why I say that is because you've already included the fonts, you've got the title in there, you've got some basic CSS in there, and some content. And by having it all set up, we can go and make another page from this one. So let's do that. Go to File, Save As, call it whatever you decide, so in this case Penguins, and save that. And then what we can do in here is we can delete the image, we can delete this click to explore, we can delete that. These are all things we no longer need. And then you'll see that if I delete this line again, it'll upgrade this to a H1, which I don't want. So I'm just going to go in here and change that to a paragraph, get rid of the break tag behind it, and then change that to a paragraph. So now that's my paragraph here. I'm also going to change that to say home, and in my code I'm going to change the penguins link to index, which is the name of my home page. So now this index page is where it's going to go if I click it. So from penguins, it's going to go here. From home, it's going to go back here. And now I've got a functional navigation between these two pages. You can add as many as you want, and we will, but at the moment we're just going to stick to this. Next thing that we have is we want to have that background image of the penguins behind this. And what we need to do for that is we need to get another property that we haven't done yet inside the body. Now the body tag has a bunch of these. It has like background, color, which we've used, but it also has background dash and a bunch of other options, one of them being the background image. Now the background image then says, well, do you have the actual image data, or do you have a URL for it? And I say I have a URL, and then it says, would you like me to browse, or do you want to just grab it from your files, or do you have it in the images folder? And I'd say I have it in the images folder. And it says, here are the images I can see in there, which one would you like to use? The King Penguins 960 please. And then I go back to design, and there they are, all in place and all in wonderful. Now you might be wondering, what else can I do with this background image property? Remember, you can go back to CSS tricks, go to your properties list, find the one that you're actually after, which in this case is the background image, and read all about this particular property, how it can be used, what other variations you can kind of adapt to it, how you can make some gradients in there, etc, etc. So there's lots of information that you can read about every single one of these properties, but Dreamweaver will try and guide you through the process of you just typing it out as you go. Now one of the other things that is worth mentioning is that when we create all of this CSS, it is actually accessible in another way, and that's through this CSS Designer panel up in the top right here. And what that means is that you can actually go and tick this Show Set and explore what different CSS you have, and you can see it's highlighting those little brackets to show you what CSS you're looking at. And here's another way that you could go and maybe browse to another image and change that image to maybe the tiger, and then go back to your design view and see that there's the tiger image. It's a little bit big, which is why we don't see it, but if we change that again over to the elephant one, again it's too big, so we don't even see the girl. But if we zoomed out, we'd be able to show you that. So if I go back to the Penguins 960 which we made, There it is. And that's another way that you can edit your code, which is, visible here, but it's also accessible via this panel here. So if you didn't know how to do this whole text transform, or you wanted to change one of these things, you could basically go in here and say I want it all lowercase, and it retypes it for you, and then it would change all of that stuff as well. So they're kind of cool things that you can do once you're more comfortable with Dreamweaver. You can start using this panel for additional things. Now, one of the other elements that we wanted to add is a box of text. So if you remember the sketch, we had this box of text in there. So what we're going to do is just under the paragraph, I'm going to add a div. I'm going to give it the ID of content, and I'm going to put in my lorem ipsum in here, and then I'm going to close my div over here so that we've got that in a box. So a div is just a division of the page. The div by itself isn't very intelligent, so it just takes up the whole space. But what I can do with my CSS Designer panel is go to Current, and then click Add Selector, and it will add a hashtag content, which will allow me to then specify some properties for it. The properties I want to specify, though, are around the position of this box, as well as the size of it. And so from the list here, you see I don't have that as an option. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want to add a new property, and the new property here that I want to set is the width, and the width I'm going to set to 300 pixels, and that just makes the box not 100% wide but 300 pixels wide. The other thing I can obviously do is add the height, but if you don't know what to type, this can be stressful. So one of the things that you can do is untick the Show Set option here, and then you'll see all of the available properties that you can set. And here's the height, so I can go in there and I can type in 200 pixels, and that'll make that. And if I keep scrolling down, there's some margins, there's some padding options, and then there's this position option here as well. So the position option is set as static, which means just go where where the next available space is. But what I want to do here is I want to do some magic, and I'm going to change this to absolute. Now what happens at that point is Dreamweaver says, oh well, that's interesting, you can now position this anywhere you like. So I can say, well, I want to position this 200 pixels from the left, and I want to position this maybe 100 pixels from the top. But the added benefit of setting it to an absolute position is that Dreamweaver gives you this little handle in the top left hand corner, which you can click and hold and then move the box where you want it to be. And then it just types in the numeric values of where you want that to be positioned. If you did want it to be, let's say, anchored to the bottom right, you could go in and set this to 0 pixels from the right and 0 pixels from the bottom, and then that will snap to the bottom. You can change that, you can make that 10 pixels so you can see the background a little bit through it, but generally speaking that's another option for you around this. So you don't have to be specific in terms of from the left and the top, you can be specific from the bottom right. As we continue to scroll down, you'll also find that there's some properties here that deal with the background and the background color specifically. So what we can do here is change that to be white, and then our box is all white and the text is a lot more legible. So going back to our sketch, we've put that box in, we've positioned it where we want it to be, we have that background image, and we have a home link. We won't do this today, but we've got the start of the internal page that we wanted to build, and we've got that index page linking to it, and we've also got this page linking back. So if you're following along and you're doing this with your own one, make sure that you've resized and photoshopped that background image so it's not too big like the tiger one and elephant one that we looked at. We resized this one to 960 pixels wide, so that's what we've got as a background image here. You then need to make sure that you've got your links between those two pages and that you insert this extra box here, and we only did that by typing in div, which is just a division of the page, and by giving it a name, and we do that by using ID equals. So hopefully you've been able to have a play with this and follow along. But as always, if you've got questions, put them in the comments below so that we can have a look at those for you. Otherwise, we will keep going with this next week, it seems. So that's exciting. And we will also see you tonight at 6 in the Collaborate session. So if you guys can join us for that, that would be awesome. If you can't make it, please watch the recording because we are working through assessment stuff in there. Alright, so thanks again for joining in, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.